expressed and created in different ways as we learn from the different periods and historical movement of it. Now we will be discussing another period of art and the kinds of art on that period. Our topic for this time will be about Mannerism art, Baroque art, and Rococo art. Of course, we acknowledge first the expertise and guidance of our art appreciation instructor, Ma'am Girma Fayed Dayandong. Before we dive into our main topics, allow me to introduce my team and their assigned tasks. Of course, for mannerism art, yours truly is Spirito Raymond Art. For Baroque art will be Miss Fraipo Antoinette May and Mr. Dudas Luis. And for Rococo art, we have Miss Ego Maria Isabel and Miss Ituya Neka. I want you all to just listen to this recorded discussion and hoping you will get insights from this. Moving to our main topic, let us first discuss mannerism art. So, what is mannerism art? It is also known as late Renaissance. Mannerism comes from the Italian word manieria, which means style or stylishness. This art movement, which originated in Florence, Italy, refers to a stylized, exaggerated approach in painting and sculpture. Mannerist artists stress the individual way of painting, the personal vision and pictorial understanding of things. They were followers of Renaissance masters, but set their own goals, created their style, and turned against traditional conventions. The character of mannerism continues to be debated. It is often discussed and judged in relation to the high Renaissance that preceded it. And some scholars see mannerism as a reaction to Renaissance classicism, which others regard it as a logical extension of it. Already in 600, I mean in 1600s, Mannerists were criticized for having willfully broken the unity of Renaissance classicism. Today, classicism no longer has a unique claim on perfection. Mannerism emerges more clearly as a link between the high Renaissance and the emotionally charged and dynamic Baroque art that followed, and that will be discussed later on. Moving on, let us talk about the characteristics of mannerism art. So, in mannerism art, subjects are portrayed in a more artificial and less naturalistic way. So, as you can see on the picture that I have um, posted here on the screen, mannerists put a high value on the portrayal of the human body. Human figures are represented gracefully but with oddly positioned bodies, elongated limbs, and stylized facial features. Their paintings are in flat perspective. So just an example, this artwork by Parmigianino, Madonna with a long neck. As you can observe, the neck of Madonna here is elongated, of course, based from the characteristics of a mannerism art. Again, um, it is full of style, and of course, um, it focuses on the human body figure. So, this work focuses on the Madonna, whose extenuated limbs and monumental scale fill the center of the canvas. A nude infant Jesus reclines on his mother's lap, while angels crowd around them, as you can observe in the picture on this artwork. His pale form, limp arms, and closed eyes create a disconcerting effect reminiscent of a woeful Pieta. So look at how the painter elongates the neck of Madonna, the arms of Madonna and the limbs of the child she's carrying, and the legs, and how the human bodies are being exaggerated. That comes along with a mixture of colors that shows less natural but more artificial. So another artwork for mannerism art is this Eleonora Toledo and her son. This portrait shows Eleonora of Toledo and one of her sons on her right. So This is a mannerism art because, as you can observe on the facial features, it is somehow artificial and less natural. The combination of colors and the texture of the clothing that they are wearing, and of course, how exaggerated her arms are. Of course, especially her neck and her shoulders. Um, um, a natural portrait of a person is not like this, right? As you can observe from other very natural portrait of a person. So as you can observe, it is clearly exaggerated. Her arms, her fingers, especially her neck and her shoulders. So this artwork is from the artist Agnolo di Cosimo, or also known as Bronzino. So another characteristic of mannerism art is that mannerist works have elaborated ornamentation which creates unusual spatial effects. Artists also experiment with colors, um, with strong clashing colors instead of grayish tones. So as you can observe here on the flash picture artwork, look at how the combination of colors are that are being used. And of course, their themes are fantastic and bizarre. When we say fantastic, it's amazing. It is, and also this is a really a complex kind of artwork. So one distinguished Mannerist artist is Michelangelo. This is our artwork of Michelangelo, who is famous for his frescoes in Sistine Chapel. So this is from Michelangelo. This painting is a painting from the ceilings of the church. Up until now, as you can observe from other churches here around the Philippines, uh, there are paintings on the ceilings that um, which originated back from the late Renaissance. So this is an example of mannerism art. So um, moving on, in sculpture, of course, there are also characteristics of mannerism art in terms of sculpture. So the sculpture, just like paintings, of course, are more expressive. So as you can see this example right here, images show physical power and tension. Contortion and twisting of the bodies are also employed. So look at, as you can observe here, the twisting of bodies, physical and power tension. Look at the facial expression of the woman right here above and below, and also here on the middle and on below. And it uses again physical power and tension, contortion and twisting of the bodies, as you can observe in the picture. So um, there are this is a famous in sculpture. And of course, here, this is what we call the Rape of Sabine Women from 1583 by Giambologna. So this is also called as this artwork is called as Figura Serpentinata, or serpentine figure, which shows spiral poses and is distinct for Mannerist sculpture. Precious metal like bronze is the medium for their sculpture. So, this famous and influential Mannerist sculpture depicts the violent struggle between three nude figures. So, a Roman man, his veined back denoting his strength, a nude woman right here above who he seizes as she twists backward, trying to escape, and an older man crouching beneath the Roman in fear. So the figure creates a spiraling vortex, with the result that the perspective of the work changes continually as the viewer walks around it. Okay? So this kind of artwork is very fantastic because it is based from the definition of mannerism art, it is really exaggerated, twisting of bodies, the characteristics of mannerism art, and yeah, it's just so nice and amazing. So there are more artworks under mannerism art. So let's get to know and explore these artworks and who are the artists of this artwork. So these are mannerist artists and their artworks. First is this Disposition from the Cross by Jacopo da Pontormo. So because the painting's composition emphasizes the swirling gestures and robes, each face is like a still point of isolation. So as you can see here on the picture, its white, shocked expression echoing the face of the dead Christ. So here is the dead Christ. And of course, look at, as you can see, the twisting of bodies right here above. And of course, the how it is expressed, like they're very flexible, and look at how their limbs and also their body figures are that are being expressed here. And of course, the colors, the mixture of colors that are being used in this artwork. So this artwork marked the arrival of the Mannerist style with its unusual color palette, as what I have said earlier, its elongated figures and distorted poses, and its creation of an unrealistic pictorial space. So as you can see, it's really, of course, it's presented that it's really unrealistic, and the pictorial space is really unrealistic. Okay. So moving on, next is our second artwork. This is Perseus with the head of Medusa by artist Benvenuto Cellini. This bronze statue shows the Greek mythological hero Perseus as he holds up the head of Medusa. So as you can see, this is the head of Medusa in a gesture of victory while standing upon her contorted and collapsed body. This is the contorted and collapsed body of Medusa over here beneath Perseus. The overall effect is one of powerful domination and emotional ferocity conveyed eloquently through Perseus' facial expression. So as you can observe that one. So this is a bronze sculpture, but in here it is like bluish in color, but actually in real life this is bronze, of course, because in sculpture, back again in the sculpture, the characteristic of mannerism art in sculpture that they use what's this, what we call precious metal like bronze is the medium of the sculpture for mannerism art. Okay, so our next one is, this is the last um, artwork that I will be showing to you. This is the View of Toledo. View of Toledo by El Greco in 1599 to 1600s. Okay, so this masterful landscape depicts a view of Toledo with the Tagus River flowing from the lower right up, as you can observe, through the center of the work where its serpentine curve, this one, serpentine curve, okay, and is echoed by the green curves of the surrounding hills. Yan, as you can observe on this painting. So, with the city's line of diagonal buildings over here that ascend on the right, its towers and spires outlined by a stormy sky, its gray clouds opening to patches of white and deep blue. So the rhythmic curvilinear, the rhythmic curvilinear forms and interplay of glowing dark greens contrasting with the nearly black horizon, the illuminated gray of the buildings, and the white edges of the cloud. As you can observe in this painting, this is so nice and of course amazing. So this is, as you can observe, there are still the painting is also still shows figura serpentanita, or serpentine figure, of course, with these curves around here, and of course, here also around the green curves and hills. Okay, so that will be all for mannerism art. Again, mannerism art is also known as a late Renaissance. And of course, when we say mannerism, it is more on style, full of style, stylishness. Okay. And of course, the characteristics are focused on the, especially on painting and also in sculpture, of course, the exaggerated on how the artists portray or present their artwork as the twisting of the bodies, the elongated limbs, that's all, and so on for that. So that will be all for mannerism art. So next we will proceed to our next topic that will be Baroque art for Miss Frico and Mr. Dudas Earl. And before that, these are my references. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Sir Luis Idres, and I'll be your reporter for the Baroque arts. The Baroque art started as a response to the Catholic Church to the many criticism that arose during the Protestant Reformation in the 16th centuries. Oh, and if you're wondering what the Protestant Reformation was, it was a religious reform movement that swept through Europe in the 1500s. And the cause of it was because of the main events that led to the Protestant Reformation were the clergy abuse caused people to begin criticizing the Catholic Church, that greed and scandalous lives of the clergy had created a split between them and the peasants. The seat of the Catholic Church in the Vatican saw in art an opportunity for reconnecting with the people. The Baroque is a good period where artistic style that started around 1600s in Rome, Italy, and spread throughout the majority of Europe during the 17th and 18th centuries. In informal usage, the word Baroque describes something that is elaborate and highly detailed. The most important factors during the Baroque era were the Reformation in the Church, the Counter-Reformation, with the development of the Baroque style considered to be linked closely with the Catholic Church. The English Reformation occurred in the 16th century England when the Church of England rebelled against the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church's rule. In the 1500s, the Protestant Reformation was a religious reform movement that spread across Europe. It culminated in the formation of a branch of Christianity known as Protestantism, a term that refers to the many religious groups that split from the Roman Catholic Church over theology disputes. And if you're wondering what was the purpose of the English Reformation was, it was to point out on how corrupt the Catholic Church clergies and on how scandalous they have been. And the first person to lead this Reformation was a German monk known as Martin Luther, and his followers were called Protestants. In the history of Christianity, the Counter-Reformation, also known as the Catholic Reformation or Catholic Revival, refers to Roman Catholic efforts directed both against the Protestant Reformation and toward internal renewal in the 16th and early 17th century. Pope Paul III in 1534 to 1549, the first pope of the Counter-Reformation, also called the Council of Trent in 1545 and 1563, tasked with the institutional reform and involving difficulty topics including corrupt bishops and priests, the selling of indulgences, and the financial abuse. And so, if you're wondering what was the purpose of the Catholic Counter-Reformation, the main purpose of Counter-Reformation aim was to solidify the trust of the people on the church, along with their saints and venerables that they have once or now have lost touch because of how scandalous or corrupt they have seemed. And the main purpose of it was to cut down the corrupt people or the corruption of the church. The characteristics of the Baroque period where exaggerated motion and clear detail are utilized to create drama, exuberance, and grandeur in sculpture, art, building, literature, dance, and in music in the Baroque style. Many art historians regard the Baroque period to be a continuation representation of the Renaissance period, the use of light and color, a focus on realism and idealism, powerful perspective effects, religious themes, and nude portraits are all common features in both areas. And that was all from me. My name is Luis Eudides once again, and I will now pass on to Antoinette May Franco. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I am Antoinette May Franco, your reporter for today. I am here to introduce about the famous artists and their artworks during the Baroque period. Before I proceed, I will give some ideas about the Baroque period. What is Baroque period? It is the important factors during the Baroque era where the formation and the counter-reformation with the development of the Baroque style, considered to be linked closely with the Catholic Church. And now, this is the 5 famous artists and their artworks of Baroque art. Joseph the Carpenter, in the year 1642, Louvre. Joseph the Carpenter is an oil painting by Georges de la Torre created circa in the year 1642. The painting depicts a young Jesus with Saint Joseph, with his earthly father. Joseph drills a piece of wood with an auger. The shape of the auger reflects the shape of the cross and the geometry of the wood arrayed on the floor. Set crosswise to the seated child Christ is a foreshadowing of the crucifixion. The second one, Nicolas Poussin, Landscape with a Calm. Nicolas Poussin was the famous painter of the French Baroque. He introduced the classical tradition, which was often described as embodying the opposite traits of Caravaggio, and there is some truth to this. His work was very subtle and his compositions were meticulously staged, just if on a stage. The third one, Peter Paul Rubens, The Garden of Love in the year 1630 to 1631, Museo del Prado, Madrid, Spain. The Garden of Love was a symbol of love for his second wife, the young and beautiful Helena Forman. The painting depicts the scene of flirtation in a Topian garden, filled with Renaissance elements. The fourth one, Rembrandt Self-Portrait with Two Circles. Rembrandt van Rijn, the eminent Dutch painter, was born in 1606 in the present Netherlands, and even though he never went abroad, his pieces were inspired by foreign influences. When most people think of the most significant Baroque artists and the Dutch Golden Age, Rembrandt almost universally comes to mind. Self-Portrait with Two Circles is a bistic piece, painted in Rembrandt's later years of life and one of his many self-portraits. The fifth and last one, Caravaggio Bacchus. Few people are aware that Michelangelo Merisse, better known as Caravaggio, was more famous during his life for his violent behavior rather than for his art. The Italian artist from Bergamo came to be known as a pioneer of tenebrism or tenebroso, the use of dramatic contrast between the light and shade. Bacchus was painted during Caravaggio's 1595 sojourn in Rome with his first patron, Francisco Maria del Monte.
Rococo art, also known as Late Baroque or Rococo, a highly decorative and dramatic style of architecture, art, and decorating. Uses asymmetry, scrolling curves, gold, white, and pastel hues, carved molding, and trampled frescoes to create surprise and the sense of motion and drama. Rococo style in interior design, the decorative arts, painting, architecture, and sculpture that is originated in Paris in the early 18th century but was soon adopted throughout France and later in other countries, principally Germany and Austria. It is characterized by lightness, elegance, and exuberant use of curving natural forms in ornamentation. The word rococo is derived from the French word rocaille, which denoted the shell-covered rock work that was used to decorate artificial grottos. The Rococo style began as a reaction against the heavy design of Louis XIV Palace of Versailles and his reign official Baroque art. Walls, ceiling, and moldings were adorned in the Rococo style, with exquisite interlacings of curves and countercurves based on the fundamental shapes of C and S, as well as shell forms and other natural shapes. The rule was asymmetrical design. Light pastels, ivory white, and gold were the prominent colors, and mirrors were commonly utilized by Rococo decorators to accentuate the sensation of open space.
Now, let's proceed to famous artists and their artworks. The Salon de Monsieur Le Prince, finished 1722 in the Petit Château de Chantilly, adorned by Jane Aubert, and the salons began 1732 of the Hôtel de Soubise, Paris, are both excellent examples of French Rococo. The ornamental arts were also influenced by the Rococo style. Its asymmetrical proportions and rocaille decoration were immediately copied to silver and porcelain, and French furniture of the time also featured curved forms, realistic shield and floral design, and a more complex playful use of gilt bronze and porcelain adornment. Cupid a Captive, oil on canvas by François Boucher, 1754 in the Wallace Collection, London. Courtesy of the trustees of the Wallace Collection. Mazarin, oil on canvas by Antoine Watteau in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York City. Rococo art in France began with Antoine Watteau's elegant, softly melancholy works, culminating in François Boucher's playfully and sensual nudes, and finished with Jean Honor, Fragonard freely drawn genre scenes, Jean-Marc Natir, and Jean-Baptiste Perronneau were the masters of Rococo portraiture. In general, French Rococo painting was distinguished by easygoing, playful depiction of mythical and romance themes, lush and delicate brushwork, a generally light tonal key and sensual coloration. Rococo sculpture was distinguished by its intimate size, realism, and various surface effects. The Rococo style extended from France to the Catholic, German-speaking nation in the 1730s, when it was adapted to a spectacular type of ecclesiastical architecture that blended French elegance with South German imagination, as well as a residual Baroque concern in dramatic, spatial, and plastic effect. In Italy, the Rococo style was centered principally in Venice, where it was exemplified by Giovanni Battista Tiepolo's large-scale ornamental paintings. The Rococo impacted the urban panoramas of Francisco Guardi and Canaletto. Meanwhile, in France, the style had already begun to fade. By the 1750s, when critics attacked it for its frivolity and decorative excesses, and by the 1760s, the new, more austere trend of neoclassicism had begun to supersede the Rococo. The word Rococo is frequently used to refer to the light, gracefully, and highly decorative music created at the close of the Baroque period, that is, between the 1740s and the 1770s. Thus, the early music of Joseph Haydn and the young Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart might be labeled Rococo, even though their work belongs more accurately to the emerging classical style. That's all. Thank you.